What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to rank the 9 movies I've watched so far in 2022. Not bad for somebody like me, and this is something you guys should know kind of just going in. You'll see my movie tastes have always been and will always be very weird. I've also have some notable absences from this list, namely Top Gun Maverick. I have not seen yet. I'd imagine it cracks like the top 2 or 3 if I actually did see it. So I will be seeing it as the year goes on. I thought this would be fun to kind of go through, and surprisingly, 9 movies for the first half of the year is pretty darn good for somebody like me. So let's go. We're going to start worst, and we're going to go all the way to best. And I don't even have to look at my list. My list is over there. But I know that my 9th movie, the worst one, is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Holy Jesus, this movie was bad. I made a review, and some of these I think I do have reviews. Some of them I probably think I don't, but I do know, and I guess I'll tell you as we go through it. Texas Chainsaw, there is a review. I believe it's on this channel that I reviewed Texas Chainsaw. It is awful. It is it's laughable, definitely. Like, it provides some sort of joy in the form of comedy, but it's not supposed to be funny. You know, the things that they did with Sally. Look, I'm not a big Texas Chainsaw guy. I'm not a big horror guy, but I feel like a blatantly bad movie, I can kind of spot those out, and this is absolutely one of them. So it's not hard to put this here. I never want to watch future movies from the same people, even though they probably will make more. And you know what? I probably will end up seeing it just so I can bash them, but easily. And I'm not even mad. In fact, this movie doesn't make me mad at all. This is just the worst movie I've seen this year. And that's really, by the way, the only movie I would consider all that bad. The rest of them is more like preference of which ones I liked more than the others. Number 8 is Death on the Nile. I thought this movie was fine. I feel like going into it, I watched it at home. I didn't watch it in theaters, and I did not do a review on this one. But I thought it was fine. Going into it, I had heard some, negative things that it just wasn't all that good. And I mean, yeah, it's not like a good film. Well, depends on your definition of words, right? Everybody's definition is different. I think it's fine. I liked the performances. The Gal Gadot thing, she got a lot of heat for the one when she's drinking the champagne and stuff. I actually thought she was fine throughout the movie, except for probably that scene, but I thought she did fine. The acting was pretty pretty solid all around. There's going to be twists. I think Murder on the Orient Express is much better than this one, in my opinion. But this one seemed to kind of almost... But, like, Murder on the Orient Express was kind of, like, up and down. This one, I wouldn't say is as up and down. And it also didn't spend as much time on the boat as I thought it was going to, or even on the Nile. It spent, like, the first 30 minutes of the movie getting to, the trip on it. So, it didn't fully take place where it said it was going to take place. But, no, I thought... Again, this is not... I would not say this movie is bad. It's just, like, I will never watch it again. I could care less, and it's just the weakest of this next group we're gonna go on. Number 7 is Jurassic World Dominion. Now, this is one. Look, let me walk you through the timeline because that'll help you understand this movie. I thought when Jurassic World came out, right? I thought it was good. It's maybe it's my favorite of the 3, although I don't know, 100% for sure. I'll have to rewatch it, but it was fine when it came out. Again, my movie tastes, and I use those kind of words: fine, okay, good. It was a fine film. Fallen Kingdom was absolutely atrocious. Okay, that's one of the worst films of that year. That would make a list if I did a list that year, which I don't think I did. But that movie is just so dumb. Character like Claire is literally a different character in that movie than the first one. In fact, the character she is in Dominion should have been the character she was in Fallen Kingdom, because it wrestles with like who she wants to be and kind of atoning for her mistakes in the past. They didn't even do that in the second movie, and they decided to do that in the third movie, so that didn't exactly work. But no, I that's how I feel of the first 2. This one was surprisingly fun. I obviously this one got review tanked, rightfully or wrongfully, so up to you. But you go into the movie and it's like, oh my god, like it's got like a 30, 35 on Rotten Tomatoes. So at that point, I guess I was going in expecting I don't even know what, right? Just give me something fun to do for a couple hours, and I'll say your movie's fine. And you know what? I don't agree with the critics. I actually very much enjoyed this movie a lot. It was a lot of fun. It had jokes. It was lighthearted. At times, it had emotion. At other times, I thought the cast was great. I thought some of the encounters with the dinosaurs were pretty cool. I mean, it's not like some spectacular masterpiece. even the technology on the dinosaurs, eventually it's not as big of like a spectacle as it used to be, but like it's fine. And then it was just a fun time. I mean, I enjoyed the legacy cast coming back. Like I don't know. I feel like this is just it's one of those movies where it's not necessarily a good piece of cinema, but it's just a fun time. I don't regret at all going. I think it deserves a higher score than what it got. I think it's miles. It's not even close how much better this movie is than Fallen Kingdom. So anybody, like the reviewers who maybe said this is the worst one, what did they watch back in 2018 or whatever? What did they watch then? Because this one is miles better. So that's my opinion, and that's why it's here. Number 6, I'm going with Uncharted. I thought this one could have easily been on the lowest mark humanly possible on my list going in, right? I was very skeptical of this movie. I wasn't sure about it, and then I saw it, and I, again, had a really good time. I think my biggest issue with this movie is Sully is not Sully. Mark Wahlberg is not playing the character Sully. He's playing an impersonation of the character, and that does suck. But at the same time, interestingly enough, I like what they did with Sully and while I wouldn't say, I guess I would say I like it. I wouldn't prefer it. Definitely, the relationship they had in the games is not the relationship they had in the movie, and the games are, again, not even close how much better. I'm okay with what they did in the movie. Like, it still worked, and I liked Sully, and I liked Mark Wahlberg's portrayal of whatever that was supposed to be, but, and I guess why am I saying that? That was the biggest weakness to me. Beyond that, I mean, it was fun. It had its action-y moments. It had some really good action-y moments. It had one of the most respectful things I think you could possibly do to Nolan North. When they would play the theme music of Uncharted, I literally had chills. Like I was smiling when that happened. I mean, I really, at its best, the best parts of this movie are some of my favorite in any movie this entire year. I'd fully say that. It was really, really good. And then, and other times it is boring. Not every joke lands. There's plenty of jokes that don't land. There's room for improvement. And again, they were doing their own thing, so, we'll see what they do for the next one, which, you know what? It probably is going to get a next one, and I'm fine with that. I didn't think I'd be fine with it, because I really didn't think they'd be able to nail it, but like, it's not, again, like, is it better than the games? Absolutely not. It's a different thing as well. But I'll take it. I think it's a fine addition to the Uncharted name. It doesn't hurt the games, which is always a plus when it comes to TV shows or movies based off of video games, right? Please don't hurt the IP name, and it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. Number 5, next up, is Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange 2. I thought this would be higher. I definitely wanted to be higher as I went to see the movie, but this is another example of, like, at its best, it's really, really good. There's some incredible, incredible moments. I love the cinematography. I thought the way it was shot, very Sam Raimi, right? But then at other times, like, I'm not sure I like what happened with Wanda. I'm not sure I like some of the rationale behind some of the decision-making of characters or story. So it is, I guess it's more nitpicky, but there are important elements that I didn't necessarily agree with, right? So I would say that's kind of why it's not higher up on this list, as some of the weaknesses in the story or characters holds it back. But I mean, it was a good time. Like, that's going into Thor, going into this, going into hopefully, Black Panther and etc. Like, going into these movies, at this point, I just want to be entertained. Truly, at this point, that's it. For some, not every movie. There's some movies I have very, very specific criteria of what I want to accomplish. But, for a thing like Doctor Strange, I guess I just wanted to see something a little bit different. Obviously, the first Doctor Strange is one of the more visually. And this one is too. This one visually and what they do with it, for sure. It does feel like kind of an outlier, an outcast from the rest of the Marvel movies, which does help it. I think it does help it. Now, again, were there issues with that still? Yes. But at the same time, I respect Sam Raimi and the entire team for doing something a little bit different. Number 4, I'm going with Sonic 2. This one was awesome. The thing to me is just, well, man, this one's tough too. At its best, it was better than Sonic 1. I think Sonic 1 is still my favorite of the two. Overall, I think Sonic 1 just did a better job. This one did have, again, some more hit or miss things. It's actually kind of like ironically weird, or like in a good way. They obviously split this movie, the story, with Sonic, and an actual Sonic game turned into a movie. And then they did the human part, right, where they go to like the resort for the marriage or whatever. And I mean, I would imagine that can backfire so many times, and it probably has for many movies backfired so many times when you kind of split the plot like that. This one, weirdly enough, like worked. Like, although the movie is way, way, way at its best when it's focused on, Dr. Eggman, or, Robotnik and Sonic and all that stuff, and even Tails, right? Like, and Knuckles was absolutely awesome as well. Like, it's really good when it's that. It's still really good in a way when it's not that. It's just not as good, okay? So I'd say, at its best when it's focused on being Sonic, it's elite. It's got its laughs, it's got its jokes, it's got its emotion, it's got Jim Carrey just absolutely crushing it. And then at its worst is really not even all that bad. It's kind of like a rom-com. It's basically a human rom-com, which I don't need in my Sonic movie. I guess the one thing I definitely did not like was like that dance scene thing. Probably aimed for kids, but I'm not one, so obviously that kind of turned me off. That was probably the weakest part of the movie. Even the marriage stuff I actually thought was kind of funny. Everybody did a really good job in terms of acting with that. So, it wasn't as strong, but it wasn't bad either. Number 3, I'm going to say, is Scream. Obviously, I would want this movie to be number 1. You hope and pray that one of your favorite franchises, and the movie you're easily looking forward to the most in the year is your number 1. It wasn't, and a lot of that is probably expectations. And I've said it before, I don't think this movie has aged all that well, even though it's only been like 5 months. I think it suffers, or at least to me, and maybe it's because of how much of it, like a diehard fan, I went in, I could not believe, that I was watching a Scream. It was my first Scream movie I've seen at theaters. I watched the anniversary of Scream 1 in theaters, but this was the first new one, right? So I was literally shaking, and it's, I cover the thing on my channel. It's a big deal to me. So, I was all in. And I watched it, I'm walking out and I'm feeling good. And then as time goes on, you start to kind of wake up and realize, well, it's still a good movie. It's still definitely a good movie. I like a lot of elements in it, a ton, actually. But then you start to say, well, as a diehard, maybe I'll pick these things apart. Even as just a general movie fan, I'll pick these things apart. So, it does have a biasness for why it's up here. It probably, for most people, would not make it this high on a list of their favorite movies of the year, because I think as a movie, there are better movies, but there is a biasness from me that elevates it up, and I'm okay admitting that, and I'm okay doing that for this list. But I will not let it get in the way of my number 2 and number 1. So my number 2 is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, the Nick Cage film. My dear God. I kind of saw this movie on like a whim. Like I knew of it, right? I had seen the trailer. Like I knew, and I love Nick Cage. I think everybody should love Nick Cage, but I love Nick Cage. And I would watch interviews and all that stuff. And my wife doesn't like him. My daughter, I don't really think would really understand, the intricacies of the movie. She just turned 8, so I just really don't think she would get it. And so, if I was going to go see it, I'd end up going to see it alone. So I was kind of on the fence, and then eventually I was like, you know what? I want to see it. So I'll go, and I went. So I went to the movie theater by myself, which I normally don't do, and I saw it all alone. And I'm glad I did. Not necessarily alone, but I'm glad I went to see the movie, because this was just an amazingly good time. It was funny. It was smart. It was self-aware. It's one of Nick Cage's best films. It's one of Nick Cage's best performances. Pedro Pascal kills it. Really, everybody kills it, but those two obviously shine. I mean, I'm thinking back to different scenes and all that stuff. It's an incredible film. It is, and it probably did go under the radar long term. Like, I think as this year goes on, people maybe won't necessarily remember it, but it's got that Nick Cage factor, and it's a really special movie. And I do agree with the general idea that this movie is elevated by your knowledge of Nick Cage and how much you like him. But I think if you don't like him like at all, like if you hate him, right, you're on the opposite side of the spectrum, this movie probably doesn't work, right? You have to have some sort of like for him. But I would say, the more you like him, the more that elevates the film. If you don't know much about him, or you're kind of like in between on him, the film probably settles down. Like, it's not as much of a, masterpiece. It's not really a masterpiece, but it's not as special probably. But I still think it would work. Like, I told my wife when I came home, I just wanted to talk about it, and she didn't really care, but I told her, like, I really like when it, and I think it is out. I think it's out, digitally. I'm gonna sit her down one day, because I told her, I said, I really think even if you don't love him, you'll still like the movie, and if you like Pedro Pascal, because he freaking kills it, right? So if you aren't so hot on Nick Cage, but you really like Pedro, maybe that is enough to see the movie. I don't know. And she doesn't hate Nick Cage. She just doesn't care. I still think the movie's fun. It would work. Maybe you guys have a similar or different feel, but that's how I feel. And number one, of course, if you guys, and I think I did a review of Unbearable Weight. I definitely did a review on this one, The Batman. When I was making the list on my notebook over there, it was kind of easy. I actually started at number 9. I filled out Texas Chainsaw. That has to be 9. And I filled out number 1. Those are the first, and I filled out everything from those, from the opposite polars, together. The Batman is a really good movie. Really good. Now, I've only seen it that one time. I own it. I bought it digitally. I use, my Google Play points or whatever. I'm, 90 when it comes to technology. My wife knows more than me. But I think I bought The Batman. So I own it. So I should watch it a second time. But I want to. This is an incredible film. It really is. It's cinema at its finest. No, Robert Pattinson does a great job. The action's great. The cinematography's great. The story's great. It was just a really and very consistent. I liked. Again, it was so easy to put this up here because as the list goes up, except for maybe Scream, the movies get more consistently good throughout. I find less problems. Sonic, Unbearable Weight, Batman, stuff like that. I find less inconsistencies. And then it's just which ones, because if you like the whole movie all the way through, for some of these, which ones are just better than the others. The Batman is. It just is. I don't really know how to put it into words, but that's my list. So there's not too many movies this second half of the year that I want to watch, but I do have a video. Maybe it came out before this one. Maybe it comes out after, but I go through the movies I want to see the second half of the year. So watch that video, and then at the end of the year, we'll do a ranking of every movie I've watched, and hopefully we can... I don't know how high I'm going to get that number. Maybe 16, 17. Top Gun should be added because I should see that at home. But yeah, maybe I can get it to 15 to 20 and we can do a really long ranking video. So let me know what you think. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I'll see you all on the next video.